So, I just got this package today, and I know what's inside. Yep, there it is. The Thomas and the Magic Railroad Blu-ray. So, this is the packaging. Let's get this open. I'm going to keep the shrink wrap because I like what it says on the sticker. There. Here we are. Nice little DVD and Blu-ray set. So how about we pop this thing in and then I'll give it a review of both the movie and the bonus features. Maybe Reactive roast style. We'll see. This video is brought to you by my Patreon. You can support me and get cool perks at the link in the description down below. Hi, welcome to RECORE Rewind. I'm your host, Rico Robbins. Today, I will be reviewing the newly released Blu-ray from Shout Factory for the 20th anniversary of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. This is the first and, so far, only time Thomas appears on the big screen. Recently, Mattel announced they're working on a new Thomas theatrical film. But Thomas and the Magic Railroad also crosses over Thomas's world with that of Shining Time Station, a PBS show from 1989 that introduced Thomas to an American audience. In case you can't already tell from my various content over the years, Thomas and the Magic Railroad is the movie of my childhood. If it wasn't for this movie and the PBS Kids show Zoom, I don't think I would be making videos at all, and I would have gone to school for something completely different. And that's not to mention my role in creating Restore the Magic. So believe me when I say that this release is very close to my heart. This is not my first Shout Factory release in my possession. I currently have Season 1 of Ghost Rider on DVD and The Best of the Electric Company on DVD as well. Seeing as Restore the Magic first pushed Shout to consider a director's cut release as early as 2015, it's neat to see this release bring everything full circle with the deleted storylines being included on this release. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll be splitting my review into 4 parts. A brief recap and review of the final cut of the movie, the history of the movie, a review of the bonus features, and a more in-depth look at the deleted storylines featurette and my thoughts on it. It might seem odd to cover the film's history after covering the film itself, but trust me, there's a reason for that. First, the recap and review. This will be stylized close to my reactive roast style of my Ghost Rider story arc review from last year, but I'll be a bit tamer in this review than I was there.
I'm Mr. Conductor, and I'm going to tell you a story about trains, folks far apart, and the Magic Railroad that brought them together.
First, we are introduced to the island of Sodor, home to Thomas and his friends. Gordon is counting down how many seconds late Thomas is, you know, being bossy as always. And when Thomas arrives, we learn that Sir Topham Hatt is going on vacation, and that Mr. Conductor from Shining Time Station will be temporarily taking over his duties. But Thomas's and Gordon's conversation is quickly interrupted by a new character speeding past them.
Get out of my way! I have unfinished business here, and I want to finish it fast! The diesel 10's back!
Sorry, returning character that we strangely haven't seen before. And for that matter, one critique that's common for this movie that's always brought up is how the mouths don't move. I honestly don't think that's a big issue. I never thought it was weird as a kid. Quite the opposite, in fact. Unlike kids today, I grew up with the model series, so I was used to Thomas and his friends not having his mouth move. In fact, had the mouths moved, I'd probably be a bit freaked out as a child. And today, I think it adds to its charm. Plus, it's a lot easier to redub compared to today's CGI series, where the mouths already moving can pose difficulties. Had they moved, it would have looked freaky like season 12.
Thomas, I need you to collect a very important passenger. He's a firefighter and a hero. He rescued Lady Hatt's cat from a tree. A hero? Thomas blew his whistle loudly. Quick, Duck! Move! Now! Duck puffed quickly forward. The water tower crashed to the ground.
Is that what you would really want from this movie? Anyway, we are then introduced to the town named Shining Time. And there's a song that plays here, also called Shining Time.
Every now and then there appears a sign that points just round the bend to a place you'll find. This is your shining time, climbing through stars to your own cloud nine.
It is one of my favorites from the soundtrack, tied perhaps with another song that we'll talk about later. The music as a whole is very well put together. Moving back to Sodor, we soon learn what exactly Diesel 10 has come back to do. Find a lost steam engine, and in the process, destroy all the other steam engines. Apparently, we learn from this movie how the steam engines are alive because of the existence of this lost steam engine, as if her existence is the magical light force that keeps it alive. But it begs the question.
What lost engine?
No, James, not that question. Where is the lost engine? We soon learn that it belongs to a depressed Muffle Mountain resident named Burnett Stone, played by Peter Fonda. He shows Lady to a local Shining Time kid named Patch, who arrives to help Burnett Stone with his chores. He goes on and describes what happened to Lady many years ago.
Long ago, I made a mistake as Lady's caretaker. An evil diesel found Lady and threatened to destroy her. He chased her, used up all her coal. He made her go too fast, and then he crashed her. And I brought her here. I tried my best to fix her up, but I've never been able to. make up for the mistake I made.
Looking back on this now, it goes to show how much was left up to the imagination of the viewer. Of course, I know that this isn't the explanation that Britt Allcroft originally had in mind for Lady's past accident, but that's for a later discussion. Growing up, I always thought Burnett's mistake was neglecting Lady and not being there to help save Lady from Diesel 10's attack until it was too late. But amazingly, Burnett never says that. All he says is that he made a mistake years ago as Lady's caretaker. Diesel wound up chasing her until she crashed, and Burnett has since tried to fix her, but to no avail. So it begs the questions for new viewers. What exactly was Burnett's mistake? Without the context of the original script, we would never know. Then there's Mr. Conductor, played by Alec Baldwin. Previously played by Ringo Starr and George Carlin in Shining Time Station, the tradition continues that Mr. Conductor is played by the U.S. storyteller for Thomas and Friends. He says goodbye to Stacy and Billy and leaves for Sodor, but not before saying the iconic line turned into a meme by Doug Walker.
Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
I know. You're thinking to yourself, how could any successful actor bring himself to star in a movie that requires him to say the line sparkle, sparkle, sparkle? Well, I think you underestimate the power of those words. I think Baldwin saw the possibilities of that line, the magic it possesses, and the ability to touch an entire generation. Don't act like these words haven't had a huge impact on your life! Hey! Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle!
What? I'm not saying the follow-up to that line. This is a family-friendly channel. Well, not including the Magic Railroad parody reaction series. I don't even swear in my original music, and I'm not going to start here. But what I wonder is, had it not been for Doug Walker taking this line from Alec Baldwin, which is even mentioned in the original script, and making it blow up the way it did, would Disney's Moana have this line in as well?
Wow! The shiny, glittery cave! And just like me, it is covered in sparkly treasure. Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
You're not selling it.
This is stupid. I'm just gonna walk up and get it.
Sparkle, sparkle, sparkle.
You're not selling it. Thomas takes Mr. Conductor to Sir Topham Hatt's office, settles himself into his role, and leaves for Tidmouth Sheds to sleep. But then we have this peculiar scene.
So who dropped the ball then? Oh, there you are. I'd like to have a nice cup of hot cocoa. Would you fellas care to join me? No? What would you rather do instead? Go outside and play? Well, I can understand that. What do you think? Why do you keep hitting him like that? You're gonna have a timeout.
Fun fact, Restore the Magic's contact at Mattel relayed to us that he asked Britt Allcroft why that scene was included in the movie. According to Britt, someone for some reason kept leaving that ball and baseball bat in the studio, and Britt decided to write it into that scene. That's it. Just like the story she told Sif about the story behind the carrot and celery scene, this is just a bizarre occurrence in the studio that causes the script to be rewritten for no real reason. But Diesel 10 then attacks the sheds and threatens Mr. Conductor. He tries to teleport away with his gold dust, only for this to happen.
You can't catch me, Diesel!
Losing your sparkle, huh? What perfect timing. Now where is that lost engine? What is that?
That's right, it's sugar, Diesel. And if I throw this in your tank, it'll seize you up for good.
Wait, So, sugar is the big kryptonite in this world? Well, why doesn't he just carry a packet of Splenda around all the time then? Or hell, if the magic dust is so magical, can't he just bring a normal-sized person into the world? There'll be a giant there!
So, where's that?
Think, people! Think!
Nostalgia Critics Review poses the question how Mr. C scares Diesel away. But does he not know the common misconception that sugar inside a diesel's tank can damage it? Many believe that adding sugar to diesel fuel can damage the engine. This isn't strictly true. Diesel fuel cannot dissolve sugar, and it will just be removed by the fuel line's filters. If the filtration system uses water in any way, the sugar could dissolve in the water and just be drained out by normal use. Based on the amount of sugar in the bag Mr. Conductor holds up, the most damage that could happen is that the filter could be clogged up, but this is easily repairable. It's far from being able to cease a diesel engine up for good, especially one of Diesel 10's size. Special thanks to James Pearson from Quora for providing this information. Mr. Conductor then has a nightmare about what will happen if he doesn't find more gold dust. He sets out to find more gold dust. Then we move into the life of Mara Wilson's character, Lily. She is Burnett Stone's granddaughter, and Lily is going to visit him for a few days. You know, for the plot. Again, I know the true reason behind the visit. Don't at me. I'm saving this for later. She gets help from a dog named Mutt, who leads her onto the wrong train. Instead of heading to Muffle Mountain, she gets on the train bound for Shining Time. All while my other favorite song from the soundtrack, I Know How the Moon Must Feel, plays in the background.
I know how the moon must feel, looking down from the heavens, smiling at the silly things we put ourselves through, missing magic each day and not seeing the wonder.
According to Mr. Conductor as the narrator, he did so for the, quote, right reasons. That reason happens when Mr. Conductor gets insight from the carrot and celery scene to call his cousin Junior. Junior, played by Michael E. Rogers, is very much the comic relief character, but he also reveals that he's also running out of gold dust. He reluctantly goes, at his cousin's assistance, to Shining Time Station to fetch his emergency supply of gold dust. This enables Lily and Junior to meet for the first time.
This is too much. I've got to get back to the island. I've got to get to Cousin. Hiya. Who are you?
I'm Lily. Who are you?
See, Junior.
Stacey Jones later drives her back to Muffle Mountain, where they meet at a crossroads. That night, Lily is awakened by the magical whistle of Lady. Back on the island of Sodor, Thomas and Percy begin to speculate how exactly Mr. Conductor travels back and forth between Shining Time and Sodor. They speculate that he could use a secret magic railroad, which Diesel 10 eavesdrops and gives him more ammunition for his plan.
Percy, you are clever. Ooh, my wheels are suddenly feeling very wobbly. I think Diesel's around here.
I'm sorry, you two. Diesel heard every word you said.
Oh, no.
I'm going after him to see what he does next. You'd better carry on and get the mail delivered.
Oh, you're very brave, Toby.
Oh, Diesel won't bother with an old engine like me. He thinks I'm really useless.
Wait, is he named Diesel or Diesel 10? Gordon is the only one who identifies him as Diesel 10, And that's only once at the very beginning of the movie.
The Diesel 10's back! Oh,
Yes.
Ever since then, he's simply called Diesel by nearly everyone else. This confused me as a child. Believe it or not, I was more familiar with this movie before I watched the earlier episodes with Diesel and Duck. Why did Diesel look different in the TV show than he did in the movie? For a while, I thought they simply made him more dangerous as an upgrade for the movie. I don't exactly remember when I realized that Diesel and Diesel 10 were two separate characters. I guess I was as slow as Marion was with Oliver and, well, Oliver.
Oliver? Oliver? But I thought you made a wish. I thought you changed into a digger. There can't be two Olivers.
yes, there can!
Diesel 10's plan is temporarily spoiled by Toby. Diesel 10, Splatter, and Dodge are trapped that night under the roof of the overhang he was under, all by his own doing. But not even 5 minutes later, we catch up with Mr. Conductor again, and Diesel 10 grabs him and dangles him over a crumbling viaduct. How exactly did Diesel 10 manage to escape the mess of his own making? We don't know, but Mr. C manages to escape by grabbing a pliers with his middle finger. Yeah, that shot of Alec Baldwin flipping the bird at the camera is in a G-rated movie. Cutting the tube and being flung through the air until he lands on sacks of grain left at the base of the windmill, exactly where the gold dust clue is hidden. I would normally say convenient for the plot, but this happens as the explanation.
Did you put all this here for me? But you must have known that I was coming. How kind of you.
Tell me, which is the more interactive segment? This bit?
You did that! You! You did that! You! You did that! You!
For shame!
Or any given episode of Blue's Clues.
Hey, do you want to make a page for the big book about us, too? You do? Oh, great.
No, a clue! Right there!
Oh, you see a clue? On this paper. Slippery wants something that goes over the water and under the water. Well, if you were Slippery, which would you choose?
The dolphin!
Oh, yeah. The dolphin is something that goes over and under the water.
That's the one critique from the Nostalgia Critics review that I think holds up. Granted, I accepted it as a child, but was this the only way to handle the scene? In fact, in the since-deleted vaulting episode about this, Morgan suggested that he thought Mr. Conductor was an narrator in the original version, as well as, spoiler alert, Lily as an adult. He seemed to think that the scene could have worked within this context, seeing as if it was Mr. C talking to the other narrator when he thanked whoever left the grain for him to land on. Sort of like what happens in many Winnie the Pooh stories.
Well, Tigger, your bouncing really got you into trouble this time. Hey, who are you? I'm the narrator. Oh, well, please, for goodness sakes, narrate me down from here. Very well. Hold on tight.
You can let go now, Tigger.
Never. But Tigger, look for yourself. You're perfectly safe. What did I tell you, Tigger? Come on. Back we go. Oh, good old terra firma.
Speaking of Brit, if you're watching this, I still would like it if you would let Morgan put his review back up. He did not rely on any of the work print leaks when making his video. And it was very kind to you and your vision. Besides, any damage done by the leak has since been rectified by this Blu-ray release. He only took it down at your request, but as I said before, no leaks were used. This video shouldn't be censored because of a misunderstanding caused by bad timing. Anyway, back to the movie. Lily then meets Patch, who takes her to Shining Time on his horse. She then meets up with Junior again, who takes her with him to the island of Sodor. Crazy antics happen, and before you know it, Lily is late for her grandpa's curfew at the very specific time of sunset. She's trapped on Sodor with Mr. C, and everything seems to be all lost until Mr. Conductor has the brilliant idea of trying to take Lily back to Muffle Mountain on a magic railroad with a train engine. Specifically Thomas, because why not? So Lily gets on board and they ride through the magic buffers onto the Magic Railroad. Of all the things that could be deemed confusing for a child, the one thing that threw me off, which still holds up for me today, is it's night when Lily leaves with Thomas for Muffle Mountain. They then arrive on Muffle Mountain in the middle of the next day. How? There are only two explanations that I can think of. 1. Lily slept off screen and they really left right before sunrise, and the sun comes up while they are traveling on the railroad. Or 2. The Magic Railroad is sort of like a rift in the fabric of space and time, and so it's very possible to emerge at one end at a different time than when you left. Of these, I am leaning towards the latter, only because when Junior and Lily leave for Sodor, the gold dust engulfs them both, and then flows into the tunnel in the mural. That tunnel, also called the Anything Tunnel in Shining Time Station, is seen as what Mr. Conductor, Becky, and Kara go into in the final episode, How the Station Got Its Name. In that episode, they go back in time in an attempt to fix an old lantern, while Mr. C fulfills a bootstrap paradox by instructing the mural designer to paint a signal house. So, if the Anything Tunnel is really the connection to the Magic Railroad, it could explain how Mr. C in Shining Time Station could use it to travel back in time if it's a rift in space and time. Who knows? Maybe they're more in common with the Conductor family's magic with the advanced technology on Gallifrey after all.
Oh, brilliant.
Landing.
Well, anyway, a coal truck that Thomas lost earlier is found on the Magic Railroad, and it is later fetched, brought to Muffle Mountain, and used to restore life to Lady once more. Lily and Pat see the energy return to the Magic Railroad, and they gather some of the multicolored energy shavings as well. Lady regains her face, and Thomas soon catches up to them. They soon arrive on the island of Sodor. With the lost engine found, you'd think they'd be able to travel back to Shining Time. After all, the lost engine was the only other known way of traveling on the railroad outside of gold dust. But we soon learn that without gold dust, none of that magic can exist. I was a little confused as to what that meant as a child, but I now seem to get what some reviewers cannot seem to grasp. Sure, without the gold dust, Mr. Conductor could, in theory, travel back to Shining Time, but he couldn't survive without having the gold dust. But before anyone can try to help him figure out how to make more gold dust, who should show up but Diesel 10? He gives chase, and this time Burnett is ready to help save the day.
Now I'll get you, Burnett Stone!
No, you won't, because the magic you refuse to believe in will get the better of you.
Believe it or not, when I first heard Burnett say that line as a child, I was generally blown away by that line. It was such a powerful rebuke for my 9-year-old mind. I can only compare how amazed I was to hear Burnett say that to how I feel whenever I listen to a really good poetic Owl City song for the first time. But I can now realize how deep that line isn't, as Diesel D199 puts it in his parody of this climactic chase scene.
Now I'll get you, Burnett Stone! No, you won't, because the magic you refuse to believe in will get the better of you. Wait, I thought he did believe in the magic. That's why he wants to destroy Lady?
None of the dialogue in this film makes sense!
But we will soon learn why this wasn't meant to be the case. They soon run into the crumbling viaduct from earlier. Burnett and Thomas encourage Lady, and before you know it, the steam engines cross the viaduct just in time. The same cannot be said about Diesel 10. But now, let's take a look at how many laws of physics are broken in Diesel 10's fall from the viaduct. However, Mr. Conductor soon remembers the rest of the clues to his gold dust, and they make more gold dust.
Gold dust!
As to why Lily takes a really long time to throw the shaving water mixture into the air, my imagination helped fill in the gaps growing up once again. I thought Lily was hesitant to finish making gold dust because she was attached to keeping the shavings as a personal keepsake. But then she remembers Junior's promise to give her some gold dust, and she decides to throw it up into the air. And of course, I'm always touched by how Burnett says they can share the gold dust in the end.
Now, we'll always remember our shining time together.
And so we've come to the happy end of our story, and it's time for all of us to go home. Just like Thomas.
Oh yeah! There was a Thomas in this movie, wasn't there? I almost forgot!
And now I can see where Dirk Walker is coming from with this problem. As someone who grew up with Shining Time Station, I never thought of it being odd to include Shining Time in the movie. In fact, I felt the final cut had the appropriate balance between Shining Time bits and Sodor bits. Even though I long pushed for a director's cut release, I must admit that I always thought the original version would work better as a Shining Time Station movie as opposed to a Thomas movie. But that will lead us into our next segment. We'll be right back with the history of the movie after a short break.
Blue's Clues and Ford remind you, buckle up before you go. There's more Nick Jr. coming up.
Here on CBS. I like to roll in the mud. Yep, and the trains like to roll on the track. Yup, and the Shining Time Station is rolling in next. Here on Nick Jr. Yes, Bartley!
What's the big rush?
You can run, but you can't hide.
Thomas the Tank Engine is going to the movies.
It is a very important day.
You and your family are invited to join Mr. Conductor,
I've got to find more gold dust.
Lily, and Thomas
This is just like the fun fair.
on the biggest adventure a little engine ever
I'll
had.
save a seat for you.
All aboard.
Thomas and the Magic Railroad, rated G, Wednesday, July 26th.
You wouldn't waste half of your water balloons. But in the last presidential election, almost half the adults in our country wasted their chance to vote. But this year, we're going to zoom at the vote. Votes are too important to waste. So talk to your parents and get them to vote on November 2nd. And if you want more information, go to the Zoom website at pbskids.org. Do your part and zoom at the vote.
Theodore, he's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do. Pushing and a pulling in the great big harbor, in the great big world is so much fun. So many brand new things to discover. Waking with the sun, gotta get the job done. Oh, Theodore, he's a tugboat. And
join the adventures of Theodore Tugboat, Sunday mornings at 7:30 on MPT.
Hi, you're in PTV Park on
Hi there, Face here. I'm chewing bubble gum. Chewing away. I just blew a bubble. Watch, I'll blow another. Wow, that was a super big bubble. It's all over me. Coming up next is another great show right here on Nick Jr.
Welcome back. If things look different than before, it's because I'm filming this on a different day in a different spot using my MacBook Pro's webcam. Anyway, as I'm sure some of you know, the movie I just recapped was not what the film's writer and director, Britt Allcroft, had in mind. I won't go into very many details, as there are plenty of other videos on YouTube, or even this Blu-ray release, that will give you the full story. Hi, this is Rico Robbins. I'm cutting away while I'm editing this video because I realized I never talked about the things I said I would talk about later back in the first part. So I'm doing that now. 3 things to note quickly. First, P.T. Boomer was the original villain. The original version of the movie had a villain named P.T. Boomer, played by Doug Lennox. He was a human villain in Shining Time, confronting Billy Two Fellas and Burnett Stone, the latter of which he had a rivalry with in the past. His return causes the magic to fade away, making Dieselton more of a secondary villain, just as a bully to Mr. Conductor and Thomas. Speaking of, P.T. Boomer, not Dieselton, caused Ladies Crash years ago. P.T. Boomer never believed in magic, putting his faith in the power of money instead. He was also jealous of Burnett's relationship with his late wife Tasha. He finds Lady, drives her, and crashes her as an act of revenge. And as we know, Burnett is still trying to revive her for many years, but to no avail. Burnett tells this to Patch, but 3/4 the way into the movie, just as Lily is returning to Muffle Mountain on board Thomas. And last but not least, Lily actually had a reason for visiting Burnett Stone. She's visiting her grandpa because her mom is pregnant and only needs a place to stay while she is having the baby. There's a lot more of an effort on Lily's part to try to bond with Burnett, and she never really truly does so until the end, right before Lady is brought back to life.
Grandpa, don't shut up today, too.
So now that you're brought up to speed, please enjoy the rest of the video. Thomas and the Magic Railroad was in the works as early as 1996, when Britt Allcroft met with Paramount chairman and CEO at the time, Barry London, and they talked about the possibility of making a feature-length Thomas movie. By February of that year, it was announced that Paramount Pictures and the Britt Allcroft Company were set to make the film with the working title Thomas and the Magic Railroad. It would be filmed in Shepperton Studios in the UK, as well as various locations in the US. However, while it was still in development, Barry London left Paramount, and the plans for the film were shelved with his departure. Britt was still determined to make the film, however, even as an independent feature. It would later be released by a new film startup, Destination Films, which Barry London joined in 1999 and regained interest in Britt's project. Thomas and the Magic Railroad finished filming by the end of 1999, and post-production commenced shortly thereafter. However, meddling by studio execs would ruin Britt's vision. The worst came following a disastrous test screening where they decided to make many changes to the film. This included the removal of P.T. Boomer because they thought he would be too scary. I've often compared the removal of this villain to being forced to re-edit The Wizard of Oz so it didn't feature the Wicked Witch of the West. I mean, it could be done, but without the villain's contributions, the whole heart of the story would be lost. Another way to look at it is if you worked so hard to create something with a specific vision in mind, only for someone else to come in and make changes against your wishes. Essentially, this is what happened to Britt. She was on her way to making her own masterpiece, but all it takes is one disastrous test screening and the execs butcher up your project to the point where it no longer feels like the story she set out to tell. I've often compared what happened to Lady in the movie to what happened to this movie itself, down to Burnett Stone's quote about Boomer's motivations.
Why does Boomer want to hurt her, Mr. Stone?
because Boomer has no compassion or imagination. He was always more interested in making money than making sense.
In the end, the film was released, the studio's changes intact, and it was a critical and commercial failure. The aftermath cost Britt Allcroft her position within her own company, and her company wound up being sold to Hit Entertainment in 2003. Mattel owns Thomas today, as Hit was sold to them in 2012. Ever since the truth behind the changes of the movie were revealed to Sword Art Island forums and fan site back in 2007, many Thomas fans, young and old, pushed for the powers to be to release a director's cut version of the film. When SIF abandoned their efforts, many others popped up in their place, including my own, Restore the Magic. And in the end, this Blu-ray's release was considered a victory, because at long last, we can see every deleted scene, including those involving P.T. Boomer. But before we get to that, let's talk about the other extras. Probably the most informative extra that's on this disc is a 2-part documentary with Britt Allcroft called Return to Shining Time. The first part is only about 8 minutes and goes over Britt Allcroft's early days in her career. I learned a lot more about her in this part of the doc than I simply did reading up on her online, and both parts only sharpened my appreciation for her. One thing I can relate to is how she describes herself growing up as someone who was shy and quiet. I'm largely the same way, especially when meeting someone new. The first part also covers how she got the rights to the Railway series and working with Rick Sealco to make Shining Time Station. The second part is much longer, just under a half hour, and it talks about everything related to creating Thomas and the Magic Railroad, from its inception to release. It also talks about how various people were cast for their respective roles. As others have said, though, it mentions nothing on John Bellis, Michelangelis, or any of the original voice cast. My guess as to why is I don't think there was really a good source of audio for the original voice cast. And what would be the point in talking about that then, without any samples? The only reason the discussion of P.T. Boomer works is because Doug Lennox is heavily featured in this part. I also was surprised to learn that even before the test screening, Destination Films studio executives wanted the film to be drastically cut down. Fun fact, our contact at Mattel also found production notes from the studio during the post-production process of this movie. They were essentially upset that they were given a Shining Time Station movie when they were expecting a Thomas the Tank Engine movie. I even theorized that with what Hubby said in his video about the test audience non-verbally echoing that sentiment, they demanded the film to be cut to remove P.T. Boomer and add in as much model footage as possible, simply as an effort to make it more of a Thomas movie. With that in mind, the idea that P.T. Boomer was deemed too scary would just be a white lie to tell Doug Lennox why his character was being cut. After all, what is more scary? This P.T. Boomer scene?
It's money that makes you happy. Magic can make a man unhappy. Don't you agree? I mean, look what it's done to you, Burnett. Who needs it? Oh, not you. Not me. I'll be back, Burnett Stone. I found you. Now I'm gonna find that engine.
Or this Diesel 10 scene.
Cinders and ashes, it's Diesel!
Diesel? Oh, no. Hello, Twinkle Toes. I got a plan, and you're not in it.
You can't catch me, Diesel.
Losing your sparkle, huh? What perfect timing. Now, where is that lost engine?
You won't find her here.
You're not clever enough to stop me.
What about this scene?
There's a big storm coming. We've been safe from storms in this valley for a long while. Let's hope this one's just passing through. Like yourself, P.T. Boomer.
I am passing through. Right on through into that mountain. Then, poof! No more engine. No protector. No more mountain of rocks. Just a mountain of money.
That mountain won't change. You can survive anything, Boomer, including yourself.
Or that scene.
Oh, I see you forgot to bring the sugar. How careless of you. Say hello to Pitchy. Okay, Twinkle Toes. I know about the buffers.
That's what I saw in my dream. It's coming true. My universe is starting to crumble.
And I know about the Magic Railway. And when I find that engine, you and all those puffballs will be history.
My thoughts exactly. My only critique is that the second part felt incomplete. Here are Britt Alcoff's last words in the documentary.
It was heartening for me to see how much the film is loved 20 years on. But where there was negative criticism, I was expecting it because I knew why they felt like that. And if the scenes had been left in, they wouldn't have felt like that.
And so we've come to the happy end of our story. And it's time for all of us to go home. Just like Thomas.
Really? That's how it ends? It doesn't seem to have a satisfying conclusion. I'm not expecting to have the documentary end on a happy note, because we all know that with regards to this movie, at least, Britt doesn't really have one. That being said, Britt mentions both how she feels most of the criticism was valid, right after she brushes over how much love the film has 20 years on. I would have switched those around and asked Britt to expand on how she feels about those who loved the movie all these years after its release. At least that way, the documentary feels less like the second part ends on a cliffhanger. The first part of the documentary, I feel, absolutely stands up well on its own. And I can't say the same about the second and final part. That speaks volumes. There are 4 interviews included on the disc too. Hello, Mr. Conductor features Alec Baldwin, and it probably is one of the better interviews. It recounts his time with Britt on both the movie and as the storyteller for the TV series. My favorite part has to be when he talks about the chest that Q gave his daughter as a gift. I wish I could see what it looked like, but the way he describes it is so cool. I would honestly pay just for that chest. The other interview that stood out to me was Finding Your Sparkle with Mara Wilson. Maybe that's just because I love Mara Wilson as an actor. I'm not familiar with her later work as an adult outside of her appearance on The Nostalgia Critic and her memoir, which I have the audiobook version of. But I absolutely loved her in Matilda as well. And I also liked her role in Mrs. Doubtfire. I have the VHS tape of her appearance in The Miracle on 34th Street remake somewhere, but I haven't seen that or even the original, so I can't speak for her performance in there. But I also love Mara as a person, and I loved hearing her insight during the filming of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. One thing that still shocks me is how much she was upset at the changes made to the movie, including the removal of P.T. Boomer. As a child actor, whose role wasn't drastically impacted by those changes, I thought she wouldn't have minded them as much. Eric also wonders, as do I, how much the movie's changes impacted her writing as a storyteller. Judy Kahn's interview was nice as well. I liked how she brought up her work on Shining Time Station as well, as I wasn't sure if she would bring it up on a Blu-ray release of the movie as opposed to Shining Time Station, even though she played the exact same character. One reviewer also mentioned, and I also liked, as an autistic person, is how she mentions her autistic son and how Thomas impacted his life in our interview. Another thing that I like, that I'm sure many autistic advocates and allies would like as well, is that Diddy uses identity first language in her interview as opposed to person first language. That, I think, is a major win in terms of autism advocacy. Hami Man's interview, The Sounds of Sodor, was probably my least favorite of the group, but that's not to knock it by any means. I learned a lot about his role in creating music for the film, as well as his attendance at the infamous test screening. I loved hearing about the story behind how Shining Time was given to Neil Donnell as well as Mary Nord. I always thought they chose Neil because his singing voice sounds the closest in tone to Alec Baldwin's voice, but I guess that was just serendipity. I'm not sure when these interviews were conducted, considering the Blu-ray was delayed right around the start of lockdown because of the biological malware outbreak in April this year. Britt's interview within the documentary and Alec Baldwin's interview were the only ones who appeared to be interviewed on camera. Diddy Kahn does appear on screen in her interview, but it appears that it was recorded over Zoom or another video conferencing platform. The other two interviews were recorded audio only. I'm not knocking them for quality or lack of on-screen interviews, especially if it was recorded this year sometime. The only other bonus features outside of the deleted storylines were the behind-the-scenes reel, the theatrical trailer, and the deleted scene Sunday Surprise, which was seen on the US DVD release. The behind-the-scenes reel is the same as it was on the German DVD, but it has an intro and credits in a different score selection. I was surprised to see how well Sunday Surprise looked in HD. It looked super high quality and in HD, as if it was transferred directly from film. The only thing I'm not happy about is the theatrical trailer. Many say it's just a YouTube rip of Unknown Thomas Fan 1's 4K transfer of the trailer, and I definitely think it is. I also noticed when ripping the Blu-ray in preparation for making this video is that the trailer was encoded in MPEG 2 instead of MPEG 4 like the rest of the Blu-ray. My only thought why could be to obfuscate the origin of the transfer if it is just a YouTube rip. It's also a shame that Cardi sent Shout Factory the 35mm reel used to create the scan, so that they can do a professional scan of it themselves. I've heard that Sony Pictures doesn't let anyone else but them do scans of films in their library. But I'm not sure if Sony's scanning policy also applies to trailers. Either way, at least credit Cardi for the transfer. Last, but certainly not least, we have the Deleted Storylines featurette. I won't be going over a recap of anything here, as this video will already be super long. I must admit that the quality leaves something to be desired. I realize that if many sources exist today, that they would likely be only in standard definition, so I'm not expecting the high quality details of a 4K film scan on this release. However, the video is encoded at a progressive frame rate, and the analog video sources have a lot of interlacing artifacts. Not only did they not do a proper inverse telecine, but they upscale the video without doing any sort of deinterlacing. This creates combing effects that are bigger than a single scan line. And that's not to mention the plethora of blended frames. It speaks volumes when the video quality of an illegal leak is of higher quality than the official release. Speaking of, I'm familiar with the past work print leak. What's shocking is that there are many shots that exist in the leaked work print where a shot missing slide appears here instead, like when Boomer blows up Muffler Mountain.
I'm gonna get my revenge, Burnett Stone. You and that engine. You know what revenge sounds like? I'm gonna get my revenge, Burnett Stone. You and that engine. You know what revenge sounds like? You dead. Yeah.
And there are also different takes used between the work print and the Deleted Storylines featurette. Many of which, like the part where Burnett tells Nellie about taking Tasha on their shining time, I feel the work print had the superior performance.
Oh, I wanted to take Tasha on our shining time.
On your shining time?
That wonderful journey when the train wheels turn and the rails shine. It was always going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow, Lady would work again. Tomorrow, everything would be perfect. And then it was too late. And I shut out tomorrow.
Grandpa, don't shut out today, too.
I wanted to take Tasha on our shining time.
On your shining time?
That wonderful journey when the wheels turn and the rails shine. It was always going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow, Lady would work again. Tomorrow, everything would be perfect. And then it was too late. And I shut out tomorrow.
Grandpa, don't shut out today, too.
Another technical thing that I don't like is that there are many times where shots are continued from different sources, like when Patch and Billy first talk about the shadowy lines on his map.
Fine work, Patch.
Thanks. Is something wrong with Rainbow Sun, Mr. Two Feathers? I heard your brakes go on.
Everything's okay, Patch.
Oh, I've been looking at your map. What are these mysterious shadowy lines on it? They look like straight railroad tracks, but I can't see any tracks around here except for the ones that you travel on.
It's mysteries that make this land so...
Magical? Well, I better be off to Muffle Mountain. I promised Mr. Stone that I'd clean out his yard today.
If you're going to change sources, always try to do it so there's a hard cut to a different shot. Consider this version of the original opening that I put together.
It all began one rainy day in the big city, just before your uncle was born, and I was going to stay with Grandpa. I was with my mum, and I was seeing sights that no one else had time to.
All right, I'll get it. Lily, Dad wants to say hello.
Hi, Dad. When are you coming home?
Oh, okay. Well, I hope the job goes well. Yeah, and I love you too. Bye-bye.
Grandpa's been so sad since Grandma Tasha died, and he never comes here to see us.
Well, maybe your visit will cheer him up, Did you get his present?
Here. I'm making him a friendship bracelet.
Honey, that's beautiful.
But I'd rather just stay here with you.
I know. Come here.
I'm gonna go up this way.
Okay. Be careful.
You always say that. You're coming with me to Grandpa's, Bluebird. I know how much you like to travel.
The big city is far away from Grandpa's house on Muffle Mountain, and I had no idea that he and that mountain shared a secret hidden deep within it.
Doesn't that look much better than how they handled the Billy and Patch scenes I showed you earlier? But enough of the technical quality of the deleted storylines. What about the featurette itself? From a content perspective, I must say that this is better than the deleted scenes featured in the leaked work print. It is a lot more fleshed out, however at times to a fault. The pacing is a lot less tight compared to the work print or the final film. Consider this reactionary video clip Eric sent the Restore the Magic group chat that I have his permission to share with you publicly.
Bye. Oh look, Lily, like us, is looking for the plot of the film. Where has it gone? Is it over there? No. Is it over here? Let's walk this way. Maybe it's in here. Maybe the plot's the dog. Maybe it's sitting down. Up? Left?
What is this place?
I don't know. It's a good question, Lily.
I also must admit that I felt like I was watching a long-lost Shining Time Station family special than I did watching deleted scenes from a Thomas the Tank Engine movie. If you're hoping that a full-fledged director's cut would do well in the UK, I still have my doubts. Even with all the existing scenes edited in, it is still a Shining Time Station movie, not a Thomas movie. But I still say it would improve the overall story. With that in mind, I must say that it grinds my gears when people call the deleted storylines featurette the, quote, director's cut. This is not a full cut of the film. Sure, it features some scenes found in the final cut, but it's not designed to be viewed in isolation as a standalone movie. It is a bonus feature, and it should be treated as such. But for anyone who has pushed for the Lost Edition's release, this is a must-have and a definite win for the Restore the Magic campaign. Yes, Restore the Magic did play a role in making this possible. Cardi says that Britt started working on it back in 2018, but that was also when our contact at Mattel relayed to us that Ian McHugh flew over to California to meet with Britt, and that she was going to start looking through her stuff to see what she could find. Ian already had the idea that the best time to release the director's cut would be the 20th anniversary of the film, as it would also be the 75th anniversary of the entire Thomas and Friends franchise. We also know that sometime in May 2019, Mattel was going to meet to discuss plans for the 75th anniversary, and that would include what would happen with regards to Magic Railroad. That is why we decided to end our petition on May 1st, 2019, to give them a concrete final number for the amount of interest in the Lost Edition. Finally, keep in mind, Sony only owns the distribution rights to select North American territories, including the United States and, since 2018, Canada. The copyright holder, as seen on the release itself, is to an entity called the Magic Railroad Company. According to the company's public records, they share an address with Mattel's UK address. So yes, Mattel does own the rights to Thomas and the Magic Railroad. And as one Sif user puts it, saying that Restore the Magic had nothing to do with the Blu-ray's release is like saying the fandom's demand for the release of the PT Boomer scenes since 2007 had nothing to do with it either. But I still must wonder why Mattel isn't credited at all in the deleted storylines featurette, especially considering the work print and the deleted storyline features the exact same footage for the original opening. But with that in mind, what do I think of the release overall? I must say that I'm really impressed with all the effort that was put into this release. The fandom likes to complain about Mattel not caring about what the adult fandom has to say anymore, even though Thomas's target demographic is preschoolers. It's easy to be upset with Mattel's handling of the show, ahem. But you must admit that they went all out for this release. A lot of the behind-the-scenes knowledge and footage is included, as well as material that was left on the cutting room floor against Britt's wishes. The only question now that this Blu-ray is out, what is the fandom's holy grail now? The missing coach footage, maybe? Sure, there are stills. That's a discussion for another video. If you're a fan of this movie, a supporter of the Lost Edition campaign, or even just a Thomas fan who wishes to complete his collection of the model era of the series, this is a must-have release. Many parents may also want to share the film with their children as well, and I definitely think that it is a family film instead of a children's film once you look at all the bells and whistles. I know some people aren't exactly thrilled that this release seems to praise Britt as this goddess of filmmaking. Yet, while I'm not sure I will consider Thomas and the Magic Railroad a cult film in the same vein as something like The Room, and while I think the Audrey family isn't exactly even like the original version of the film. I don't think Brit is someone we should look down on. After all, without her involvement in the Thomas franchise, Thomas would be just another character in a long-forgotten UK book series, and I wouldn't even be talking about this right now. I do look up to Brit, and this release only sharpens my appreciation for her and her work. I respect the opinions of others, of course, even if they disagree. But for me, I must give this release an 8.5 out of 10. By the way, Thomas, one way of making your interview more concise is if you don't begin every sentence with this phrase.
In Thomas and the Magic Railroad, the magic needs to be reminded.
It's just as meme-worthy of an ending, in my opinion. Well, that does it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Rico Robbins. Please vote, and sparkle, sparkle, sparkle!